Resembling a temperamental dragon, the Mekong River twists and turns through the Tibetan mountains. It initially rushes towards Laos, then slightly loses pace before it charges yet again prior to traversing Cambodia and Vietnam. Millions of men, fishermen, merchants and peasants live all along the churning river's 4,200-kilometer course. The Mekong River is one of the last remaining nourishing rivers of the world. At the same time valued, exploited, and revered, Laotians deem the Mekong as the water's tomb, the Menom Kong. It is simply known to Cambodians as the Ton Lé Sap, meaning the large river. The Ton Lé Sap is considered to be the Mekong's heart. It is in fact Asia's largest freshwater lake, which spreads out in the middle of Cambodia. The Ton Lé Sap is linked to the Mekong through a small river which ties into it near the country's capital, Phnom Penh. The lake is truly a world of its own. Abiding to the flow of both rain and floods, the Mekong's water spills beyond the confines of the lake, flooding the surrounding forests, paddy fields, and plains as it overflows. It's an added benefit to the hundreds of fish, bird, reptile, insect, and plant species growing within this inconspicuous ecosystem. People live on the lake as well, by integrating themselves and blending in the background of this aquatic realm. In recent years, in Prek Tol, a floating village of 800 dwellings secluded toward the western part of the lake, the water hyacinth has become troublesome. This plant is well known and widely spread across the Ton Lé Sap. As it grows in a large area of invasive, tangled vegetation, it clogs boat propellers, entwines smaller fishing nets, and consumes valuable oxygen contained in the water to the detriment of the fish population. Prek Tol women have come together in an effort to clear the floating laneways burdening their villages by harvesting hyacinth stalks they'll later weave. Nav Touch is a 50-year-old woman who has always lived on the lake. As a fisherman's wife, her existence is spent carrying out a wide range of necessary tasks. Small-scale fishing near the village and fish farming while minding the 6 children in her care. Day by day, not unlike the score of women involved in hyacinth weaving, she manages to convert an ecological problem into a source of income.
I weave from morning to night, and when I feel like cutting down hyacinths, I simply go down and do it. Otherwise, I just keep on weaving. My daughter and I work together. We craft anything we fancy. If we'd like a basket, we make one. If we'd rather have a mat, then that's what we'll make. If a hammock is what we need, a hammock we'll make. We keep our minds sharp, thinking up new designs. My husband wishes we lived on dry land, whereas I have no idea how to go about living on solid ground. I'm not used to it. We've been living on the river ever since my grandparents' generation. On land, we're fearful of people. We are somewhat uneasy. Life on water is a daily struggle, a constant fight. Every year our home is in danger of being flooded if we don't replace the bamboo. With enough money, we can make the house float much better. Otherwise, it looks like this.
Each afternoon, Nav Touch joins the other village women in a floating workshop where they greet their most important clients, the tourists that venture to Prek Tol, eager to discover its beauty and learn about the challenges of living on the water. On-water living is costly. Through the help of Osmose, a French-based NGO established 10 years ago, the women convert their craft into a substantial additional source of income. crafted handbags, mats, and hammocks gradually disappear alongside these visitors, finding new homes in Paris and London, or as in the case here, Seoul. Contrary to the serene facade portrayed, the aquatic lives of Nov Touch and her children is anything but laid back. The large Ton Lé Sap lake is an unpredictable food source. Living on the water is a harsh challenge for mankind. Whether floating or resting on stakes, their homes must sway to the rhythm of moving water. The bamboo floats on which these dwellings lie require frequent replacing. They occasionally separate and sink in periods of blustery winds. Amid the village riverways, the hustle and bustle of the service station, grocery store, small floating gardens, and student transportation ensues, whether it is through the use of oars, motor, or simply drifting. Sat Kim Lee, a teacher in Prek Tol, is also a member of Osmos. Over the last 10 years, she has assisted children in discovering and preserving their environment thanks to the support of Osmos. Today, the children embark on a journey touring the flooded forest. The Ton Lé Sap is classified as one of UNESCO's biosphere reserves, a title in part attributed to its flooded forests. A peculiar world where trees grow partially immersed underwater for half the year, fish feast on the fruits of their submerged branches, while hundreds of birds build nests at their crowns.
We get the children involved to ensure the preservation of the forests and so that birds aren't hunted. This forest and its many birds attract a number of tourists, thereby providing the villagers with an income. We would like for the children to understand this concept so they in turn can convey the message to their parents.
Do you see the nest?
Yes.
And the eggs?
No, only the baby birds.
Are you sure there are any? You see any babies?
Yeah, I can see something white.
Thousands of pelican, ibis, stork, and marabou couples build their nests in the swamped forests of Prek Tol. As a protected sanctuary, it is regarded as one of the largest remaining bird colonies of Southeastern Asia.
We have to count them one by one. Count 1, 2, 3. Try to count. Go ahead and count.
I only see the male. I don't see any babies.
You only see the male? Oh, look, it's all white.
Go ahead, you try. I only see the male, no babies.
Try counting them in this tree.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The male is leaning forward.
If the forest is protected, are the fish protected too?
Yes.
Is there a lot of fish?
Yes.
Does it mean our parents can fish a lot?
Yes.
Can they fish a little or a lot?
A lot.
If there are lots, how's the standard of living?
It's comfortable.
Preserving nature is important for all of us.
Yes.
The message is conveyed. The conservation efforts have resulted in an increased population size for a number of the many endangered species.
We must not throw garbage in the water. Must not let our parents cut down trees or shoot birds.
A sudden urge of excitement occurs a few days prior to January's full moon in Prek Tall and other floating villages. Millions of small silver and white fish, called tri-riel, embark on their great annual migration. They leave the lake behind as they begin their journey up the Mekong, heading north towards Laos. This is when fishing is at its peak, an event at the forefront of every fisherman's timetable. The waters are saturated with an overwhelming array of fishing gear from the dubious to the most yielding. There is no wrong way to go about catching tri-riel fish. Eric Baran is a French biologist who has been diligently working on the Mekong over the last 10 years on behalf of World Fish, an international organization who aims at battling poverty and hunger through improved fisheries, a necessary activity for the men of the river. Eric Baran travels up the river between the Ton Lé Sap and the Mekong in order to assess whether the fishing is good this January.
We're arriving at the Dai fishery. What you see here are fishing net openings, the net's mouth. These nets are approximately 10 to 15 meters high and sit at the bottom of the river. There are several rows of 3 to 4 nets. In total, there are over 60 of these nets along the river. At this time of year, for a period of 10 to 15 days, an hourly average of 30 tons of fish is caught from this river, day and night.
Whether they are wholesalers, peasants' wives, small merchants, or market vendors, each one eagerly awaits the fish. It is the gift bestowed by the Mekong's waters. This nature's bounty is by the same token strenuous work. It appears as though the anticipated fishing climax has lived up to the expectations. Eric Baran is going to observe another fishery.
This is a crucial time to determine the state of fisheries for the upcoming year, since the amount of this type of fish caught while in migration corresponds to about 60% of the fishing yield for the entire year.
The Mekong's fish is at the center of attention for both scientists such as Eric Baran and millions of fishermen. Fishing is not a hobby, but rather a convoluted balance between the hunger of mankind and the conservation of the 750 species of fish inhabiting the river. Year after year, a little further up the river, fishermen set up temporary wooden dams which guide the fish towards a funnel where they're trapped. As it stands, the Mekong is still in good health. There are still few industrial facilities and only a handful of sizable cities along its shoreline. The level of pollution remains moderate. The fish is mainly healthy and plentiful.
Both the type of species and the size of fish is what changes. The bigger species, such as large catfish, tend to disappear and be replaced with smaller ones similar to the sardines. Globally, however, there is no fish loss since everything gets consumed. The problem lies in increasing number of fishermen, or rather the growing number of people who rely on fishing as a means to live because they're unable to find work in other industries within the country. This results in a lesser share of fish per family or per fisherman.
The Mekong remains open-handed with the men who relentlessly exploit its riches. The fish in its entirety is wholesome. By means of pounding, culling, weighing, drying, cutting, and salting, the fish is initially preserved, then subsequently sold to Cambodian, Laotian, and Thai markets. Whether big or small, prepared as soups or fritters, the river's protein-packed fish feeds 60 million people in the Mekong Basin. This is how it has been for centuries. Illustrations of the fish populating the river have been carved in the low-relief stones of Angkor Temple's walls since the 12th century. As portrayed on the stones of Angkor Wat, or Bayon Temple, the fish of the Ton Lé Sap are caught in hoop nets prior to being traded at the market. The daily life from the past, as depicted in stone, is not too far removed from that of today's fishermen. Although carps and catfish are identifiable, some shark-like species of these stone carvings are not found in the Ton Lé Sap. The low reliefs additionally tell tales of warfare between the Khmer and their Vietnamese neighbors, the Cham. All festivities, naval battles, and warriors falling into the water are much to the delight of omnivorous fish. The enthrallment of water has remained, although various cults have been venerated over time in the Angkor temples, which were originally dedicated to Hindu gods and then later to Buddha. Leading visitors, tourists, and Buddhist priests towards the stone labyrinth of Angkor Wat are a couple of Raganaja, the very same king serpents who, as legend has it, have shaped the Mekong's course. Water is an omnipresent component of the predominantly mineral realm that is Angkor. The Khmer kings who built the city asserted their political power by controlling water. Overflowing during rain season, while scarce in the period of drought, the amount of water was managed through the use of gigantic basins called barais, which surrounded both the temples and the dwellings. These barais commanded the labor of thousands of men. They epitomized the primitive ocean at the origin of the Cambodian kingdom. The water flowing out would finally reclaim a more mundane role by irrigating the surrounding paddy fields. In Phnom Penh, the Ton Lé Sap merges with the Mekong. The royal palace's pagodas bear witness to an exclusive phenomenon that influences the migration of small fish and contributes to the extraordinary abundance of the Mekong's waters.
What occurs here is a rather unique event, the reversing of the water's flow. The Ton Lé Sap River is virtually the only river on the planet capable of flowing one direction or the other. This, in fact, is due to the surge of a colossal amount of water while the monsoon rages over the entire southeastern part of Asia, thereby resulting in a rapid increase of the Mekong River's water level. The Mekong water rises so much faster than that of the Ton Lé Sap that it spills into the Ton Lé Sap. But when the rain season comes to an end, the opposite happens. The Mekong drops rapidly while the Ton Lé Sap, having more inertia, takes about 6 months to drain back into the Mekong.
Forced out of the confines of the lake, millions of fish head north, cross-current straight through the mesh of the Cambodian fishermen's nets. In search of suitable breeding grounds, they migrate towards Laos. Between Cambodia and Laos, the Mekong is virtually a gigantic fish highway. The river essentially serves more as a border to man. The Mekong defines the limits between Laos, Thailand, and Burma. Its frantic course is not suitable for navigation. The scarcity of bridges along its shorelines, amounting to no more than 5, substantiates the fact that bridges are just not meant for it. Although the Mekong has forever fed men, it has failed to unify them. Civilizations, languages, and traditions remain widely divergent all along its shores. The Mekong is both inviting and fascinating. Travelers, merchants, fishermen, peasants, and tourists, each one of them is drawn to the Mekong as much to feed their appetite for adventure as to satisfy their hunger. The fertilized shorelines, enriched by the river's silt south of Laos, near the city of Champasak, are converted into vegetable gardens. This year, the arrival of the small migrating fish is delayed. While some tend to their gardens, others impatiently await the small fry. "80 kilometers from the border between Laos and Cambodia, in the city of Champasak, the Mekong changes pace as its course widens and flows leisurely. Typical of most southern Laotian rural towns, where the atmosphere tends to be jaded, the daily life in this city, established by the river's side, unwinds at a pondering pace. A small number of dwellings and a game of lawn bowling evoke the country's colonial past. Upon exiting the city of Champasak, nestled between the river and the mountains, are the Wat Phu Temple ruins. These vestiges shadow the course of a sacred water source that emerges from the exposed rock that soon after spill into the Mekong. The subtle hum of the river is barely noticeable to the surrounding islands. The Mekong widens to such an extent that it almost appears to flow in slow motion. On the island of Don Ko, there are neither cars nor motors, where the men set off fishing and the women busy themselves weaving below the houses amidst the fishing nets. "10 years ago, Mrs. Dai evidently joined in the village's weaving tradition after marrying a man from Don Ko.
I really enjoy my work. When I first arrived in this village, I had no occupation. This work allows me to provide for my family.
เฮ็ดสิ้นหรือว่าเฮาเอาไปแบบว่าเขาเจ้าตั้มเคียงไปตัดเสื้อก็ได้แบบว่าเฮาอยากตั้ม
I weave sarongs and a few pieces used to make shirts and scarves.
เฮาอยากตั้มหลายแบบก็ได้ว่าสิซะตั้มหลายแบบก็ได้เฮาก็เฮ็ดเครือตั้งนะ
We can make many different types of fabric. It all depends on the design. This fabric can be used to make a skirt or a top. Each piece of fabric corresponds to a specific technique. Like this, I can weave one piece per day. Here's what I do in one day's work. This design is called I-cat. There are circles and crosses. If we want more elaborate patterns, we can combine several designs according to the need. First and foremost, we must harmonize colors and designs.
The Mekong becomes convoluted as it approaches Si Phan Donh. Within a stretch of a few kilometers, the river becomes restless. In Laos, the name Si Phan Donh means the 4,000 islands. It is where the Mekong bursts out into a maze of sandbanks, islets, torrents, rapids, and waterfalls. With each passing season, the Mekong chisels the panorama within the Si Phan Donh archipelago. As it seeks its path amid the islands, it moves sandbanks while bending trees and seizing their roots. The fish migrating from Cambodia overcome these hindrances as they easily blaze their trail through this aquatic maze in order to reproduce. Much anticipated by thousands of local and Cambodian fishermen, Eric Baran has come to observe the arrival of the small traveling fish from the Ton Lé Sap.
This is very much a mystical place. It is an exceptionally lovely area where, unlike everywhere else on Earth in my opinion, spectacular fishing styles adapted to very specific conditions, such as fishing in the falls, can be found. It is simply a fascinating place.
The fishing nets remain empty as they patiently await the arrival of the small silver fish. The fish influx may be delayed due to climatic variation or water levels that are either too high or too low.
Here we are. This is one of the traps set up to catch fish attempting to make their way up the waterfalls. It's a snare featuring a trigger mechanism with a large moving rock and a door. We'll activate it. The large fish passes through this small opening channel as it tries to swim against the flow. It then encounters the trap. These traps are often baited. The fish sets off the snare as it moves about it, forcing the door to shut. It's now caught. It stays fresh until retrieved.
In Si Phan Donh, men devise some of the most remarkable traps, such as the li, bamboo scaffolding stabilized by stone ballasts.
This trap is intended for large fish that are more than likely catfish, about this size, and are also cyprinids. The theory is simply to filter the water and retrieve the fish as it gets on the platform. In this particular area, we catch over 100 different species of fish. 102, to be exact, have been cataloged through the use of over 40 different fishing appendages.
Avec plus de 40 engins de pêche différents.
The Hausahung Channel is the sole passageway for the migrating fish between the waterfalls and other numerous man-made or natural hurdles. It is simply another branch of the Mekong River that traverses Si Phan Donh, the only one unhindered by a waterfall that offers a sufficiently moderate flow suited to the small fish. This is where the Laotian authorities have planned a power dam venture. The fishermen's unsteady temporary barriers are at risk of being eclipsed by a concrete wall measuring tens of meters high, capable of converting the river's might into valuable electrical energy.
To a lesser extent, it would impact local human populations, but in a larger scale, it would affect all the fish from Vietnam, Cambodia, and the Ton Lé Sap, who must negotiate their way up the waterfalls to reach their breeding grounds further upstream. In the vicinity of Laos, one would assume a far less severe loss. Further downstream, however, in relation to Cambodia and Vietnam, although it's hard to guess, the shortfall would be in the range of tens of thousands of tons. The environmental and dietary impact would be of colossal proportions.
Men have always devised ambitious undertakings for the Mekong. Back in the days of colonization, as the French merchant vessels stumbled upon the numerous waterfalls of Si Phan Donh, they began the construction of a 15-kilometer-long railroad throughout one of the main archipelago's islands, Don Cone. As a result, the merchandise would bypass the waterfalls as it was brought in by rail. Although the tracks have since then vanished, the still-standing railroad bridge has become a favorite walking trail for tourists. In recent years, a few small boarding houses on stilts have popped up on Cone Island, luring weary travelers eager to catch their breath after exhilarating adventures through Thailand or Vietnam, with the prospect of resting in an intimate setting with the still preserved beauty of the Mekong. Giant catfish, as well as Irrawaddy dolphins, are two of the Mekong's most iconic species. Although nowadays protected, these two symbolic creatures are endangered after decades of ruthless fishing using electricity or dynamite. At dusk, visitors standing at a respectable distance can still catch a glimpse of the fragile colony of 60 or so freshwater dolphins' elusive dorsal fins. Several years ago, Suthep Kritsanavarin, a Thai photographer, fell head over heels for Si Phan Donh. He recognized the vulnerability of the scenery and has since immersed himself in a testimonial vocation. His photographs attempt to capture Si Phan Donh's enduring delicate balance that exists between nature, the river, and man. Fishermen possess an in-depth knowledge of the Mekong's waters. They shun away from hazardous deep-water holes where the safety of one's pirogue is key. They know exactly when to fish standing on the high ridges of the riverbed.
In my photographs, I try to depict significant things such as fish, people, fishermen, and the beauty of nature. What I predominantly want to show the world are people and nature as one. They may remain bonded for a very long time. This is the focal point of my work.
คนธรรมชาติต้องสามารถอยู่ด้วยกันได้อยู่ด้วยกันอย่างยั่งยืนนี่เป็นจุดเน้นของภาพถ่าย
Year after year, photograph after photograph, Suthep Kritsanavarin has become friends with the fishermen. He relays the story of the evolution of their way of life and the changeover from prolific fishing as a way of life to a more ruthless commercial activity.
Fish no longer have time to grow?
The fish don't grow enough to allow for decent fishing. The fish aren't given the time to get bigger. In the past, we used to be satisfied with small fish along the edge and would leave the large ones alone at the bottom. Nowadays, we're equipped to catch large fish that swim in deep water. A portion of our catch is sold to hotels and continental restaurants, and the rest to Thailand. Laotians don't buy these fish, they're too expensive.
You fish, but you don't eat your catch?
We don't eat the large fish because they are worth too much money.
You catch them, but you don't eat them.
I don't eat them. I sell them at the market, and then I buy myself a nice shirt.
The eagerness of Si Phan Dohn's fishermen at the prospect of drawing a meager living from the Mekong is declining steadily. Nevertheless, waterfall fishing remains a privilege. This traditionally established claim is passed on from father to son, with all the secrets and necessary skills required to catch fish within the most treacherous part of the Mekong.
ในปี 2000 ผมได้มาที่นี่แล้วก็
As many have done before me, it is as a mere tourist that I came here in 2000. When I first arrived, I took tons of photographs. Beyond the mesmerizing nature and landscape, I noticed that fishermen and peasants use unique fishing techniques, unlike anywhere else I knew of. Fishing here is risky and hazardous.
จากที่อื่นโดยเฉพาะเป็นการจับปลาที่เสี่ยงอันตราย
Suthep Kritsanavarin documents the accounts of a fishing excursion turned into rock climbing. Sam Yang is 43 years old. He's been fishing since he was 17. He possesses a thorough knowledge of the falls. This precious information allows him to fish placidly in an area where the river's wrath is most powerful. Sam Yang keeps an eye out for the increasingly late fish. He knows why this is.
How's the water at the moment?
ตอนนี้มันเป็นยังไงเนี่ยน้ำเนี่ย
The water level is abnormal for this time of year. There's less fish.
Why is the water level still this high?
น้ำมันยังสูงอยู่เนาะ
There's so much water coming from the north. There's still way too much water here.
Do you know why?
I don't know. Maybe the dams have released water.
Are the dams from China releasing water in the Mekong?
Yes, it comes from China.
What are the consequences?
The fish are unable to make it upstream.
The river has always compelled mankind to follow the rhythm of its volatile fluctuations. The tables are about to turn. With 32 fully completed dams and over 150 in the midst of being erected, political authorities alongside engineers from China, Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos have already started altering the river's pace, the rhythm that dictates the lives of men all along the Mekong and to which the fish synchronize their very existence. Power dams are becoming a key element needed for exponentially growing legitimate economic development. This irrefutably necessary machinery could potentially destroy man while taming the river.
At first glance, one would easily notice the way fishermen struggle against nature. It's a fact. At the same time, though, they try to learn from it and how to live with it. Here, the fishermen strive to not disturb nature, to leave it unharmed. They go through great lengths to learn how to catch fish to feed themselves, even at the risk of endangering their own lives.
ได้มาเพื่อสิ่งได้อย่างได้อาหารอย่างเช่นปลาเพื่อการดำรงชีวิตแม้มันจะต้องเสี่ยงอันตรายก็ตาม
It's tonight's dinner for my wife and I.
At different times all throughout the year, numerous species of fish take their turn in meeting their end with the various fishermen's equipment. Suthep Kritsanavarin's photographs relate a story of a Mekong that remains generous despite being perilous. The Mekong has always welcomed man, whether they are in search of fish, beautiful scenery, or currently, electrical energy. In order to benefit from the strength of the river while preserving the surrounding ecosystems, the people that live off what the Mekong provides will have to quickly find a new balance. The Okavango River gives birth to a genuine Garden of Eden in the heart of Africa. Its waters drench the Kalahari Desert sand, thus bringing life, feeding the papyrus, in addition to quenching the thirst of the antelopes, lions, elephants, and egrets. Over centuries, its shorelines have lured a wide range of cattle raiser and fisherman tribes: Bushmen, Hambushuku, Bai, Kwe, and more recently, scores of passionate scientists, nature guides, and NGO delegates. Lloyd Wilmot is Botswana's most prominent bush pilot. From the sky above, the river's 1,700-kilometer stretch appears tiny to his eyes.
All this water of the Okavango comes from Angola, and it flows down through Namibia into Botswana. And the first part is the panhandle, and it flows south and then opens up into the delta. And from one side of the panhandle to the other, you have approximately 20 kilometers of water under the papyrus, with one river flowing through the middle of it.
Lloyd Wilmot's parents arrived in this region 60 years ago. It is then, as wandering grocers, that they settled in the delta after traversing Botswana in an ox cart. Today, it is as a nature guide that he spends hundreds of hours airborne each year. Assigned on occasion to keep a watchful eye over the poaching areas, he monitors all of the 15,000 square kilometer basin of Okavango.
This is the main Okavango River. It's where it's strong and wide before it breaks up into smaller channels. Its water represents life, and if it wasn't for the water of the swamps, there'd be no game, there'd be no livelihood. The more water I see, the more I enjoy it.
As soon as it completes its descent from the Angolan mountains, the Okavango spills over the dreadfully flat expanses of land. As the river no longer benefits from any altitude difference, it fails to gain speed and is then unable to further burrow its riverbed by eroding the ground. In the Kalahari Desert, it spreads out into twisting and turning small waterways as it forms a basin. This is a unique global phenomenon, an extraordinary occurrence resulting from an extremely permeable soil and an underground geological cavity into which the water collects. Vince Shax and his assistant Richard are biologists whose work of closely monitoring the river's biodiversity is assigned by private firms while mandated by the government. The missions taking place within this lagoon maze require proper safety measures in order to deal with the delta's most aggressive animal, the hippopotamus. This herbivore's teeth have the ability to pierce through the hull of boats navigating through their territory.
Look at this one coming towards us. Look here. See, he's coming towards us.
Oh, baby hippo, give me a break.
Baby, where's the mommy?
Where's the mom?
At this time of year, Vince tracks down and plots the egg-laying sites of female crocodiles. Little by little, this process allows the tracking of the delta's crocodile population restocking. It took 30 years for the decimation of close to 50,000 crocodiles to occur, as their hide was a hot commodity in the leather trade markets.
The panhandle is better for nesting because the habitat in the panhandle is actually more suitable for the crocodiles than it is in the delta. The water here is permanent water, it's here all year round, and we also have huge amounts of what we call lataka, which is reeds, Phragmites reeds, and those are generally associated with land. So we find that a high concentration of that type of habitat along the panhandle than we do in the delta. The best way to do it is to stop. But I don't want to walk up her slide because she might even be down there. That's definitely a nest. Okay, let's just stop here.
The ultimate goal is to tally the active reproduction sites without unearthing or damaging the eggs.
Big hippo. Personally, I'm more frightened of hippos than crocodiles. They're just very aggressive and their tendency is to fight rather than flight. So we don't mess around with the hippos. This is the back part of the nest. So we're going to go in here and see if it is a nest, but we just got to be really quiet because this is what she normally uses to escape when people approach. So just be very careful here. Nest site is very likely to be here somewhere. As if you look up here, this is where the croc has now come out of the water and walked slowly up the sandy bank of here. You can see how she's twisted to get up the bank. Check over here. Look at the print of her head. I think we've got the nest here, over there. And she's moved forward and back over here. There she's sat there for a while again. And then this is her body moving over here. She has big belly scales over here. And you can also see how she's come in from different sides of the tree.
It looks like I think she was lying here and then she escaped down that way.
I'm not going to hang around at the front of the water for much longer. Jaw ends over here.
To avoid any incident with protective females, safety measures need to be swiftly put into action. Vince performs this essential duty twice a year, since these predators' reproduction plays a major role in the river's balance. Without them, the large catfish they primarily feed on would multiply and devour the entire marine microfauna. Towards the end of the year, the Okavango flooding comes to an end. The new season is near, so is the summer's hot weather. The river's flow rate decreases. The land reclaims the newly drained areas. The delta gradually dries out. The grass turns yellow. The vast majority of animal populations initiate a slow migration toward Botswana and Zambian soil in search of new pastures. A few take this opportunity to venture into new areas, spaces that are not submerged by water. For the last 5 years, director Brad Bestelink and his sound engineer Jason Lurin have lived in the center of Moremi National Park. They both work for a South African corporation that employs a score of camera crews. These teams release animal films from just about everywhere around the globe on a daily basis. The receding floods are an opportunity not to be missed by a number of animals. Big cats, crocodiles, and birds take advantage of the river's parched branches to feast on the many fish that find themselves trapped and left behind.
We try our best to keep up with the lions, but there definitely are times where we just actually can't go where the lions go. This crossing, for example, when we first came here, we couldn't drive through this crossing. When the water is at its highest, you can't actually drive through here. And if the lions come and they use the grass to access this point, we have to go and do a 4 or 5 kilometer detour just to get across the other side of the river to catch up with the lions. You can imagine if it gets a bit deeper than that, it becomes quite difficult.
Being stalled somewhere surrounded by wildlife due to a mechanical failure is the greatest danger around here. They rely solely on a radio link to their base camp, but reception can be spotty.
They don't, it's funny, they lie down when it's raining. They just bunker down. They won't move around a lot during the rain. But as soon as it's finished, they'll start to move. I just want to try and get to them quickly, and I'd like to get some of that of the lions actually lying in the rain. You can really see how miserable they are generally.
Brad witnessed the birth of 4 lion cubs 5 years ago. He has since made it his duty to film their growth at regular intervals.
The prey species moves around a lot more in the rainy season. So the territory actually expands quite a lot in the rainy season. And in the dry winter months, when the floodwater arrives, all the animals are drawn to that water. And then the lions become relatively localized in a very small area. So there's a huge difference in their territory structure between the dry winter months when the flood arrives and the summer months when the rivers are dry but everywhere else is green. Quite far down in the delta here, it's very difficult for the lions to get up against the main channel. But all of the little networks and subsidiary rivers, they have to cross them all the time after the prey species. These lions, we see them swimming probably 2-3 times a month, actually cutting through deep water. If you live in the delta, you've got to just accept that water is a way of life. And all the animals, from giraffe, lion, everything, just has to learn to deal with the water. That's what makes it quite unique.
A shared sense of trust has developed between animals and filmmakers. From time to time, a few lions doze in the vehicle's shade while Brad does his takes. Wildlife is kept at bay thanks to an electrical fence that surrounds the base camp. Hyenas, in particular, are capable of raiding their whole supplies. The day's images are immediately downloaded and sent to the website EarthTouch via satellite. They will be available for viewing that same day. Today, Brad is entertaining Vint Shaks, the crocodile expert biologist. They are in the midst of planning a new submarine mission in the basin. It is a genuine expedition in unknown territory. The water is frigid, 10 degrees. It is risky because it is unknown how the large predators might react.
It's amazing how the channel... We spend a lot of time on the river and watching these crocs. I mean, you research them for I don't know how long. As soon as they go into the water, they just disappear.
They're gone, yeah. We've often wondered about that. I mean, even at night, they'll go down and we'd wait with them, and they wouldn't come up for a long time, and we often just thought it was them sitting at the bottom.
Yeah.
But now that we know that there's this huge maze of underwater sort of pathways underneath the papyrus, it makes a lot more sense now. You know, these guys could very easily go down, get underneath the papyrus and come up in a lagoon somewhere else. We wouldn't have even known that.
Absolutely, and also, I mean, it lends to sort of explain that the way these crocs move around the delta. They're using these things all the time.
Exactly.
It's not just you know, on occasion they hide underneath it. These guys are actually using these caves and these pathways to actually move around the delta.
Definitely.
You know?
Oh, brilliant!
Do you not see this one? And they've got no problem with the darkness. I mean,
Yeah.
It's incredibly dark in those caves, and even narrow. I mean, they just...
And look at that,
they
he's
just glide.
beautifully. He knows exactly where he's going. He's done this before. I mean, look at that.
It's like a sanctuary for them. This whole sort of rabbit warren of areas that they can just go and be completely undisturbed.
Go and hide. There's a big croc.
An incredible experience to burrow underneath these big shells.
A man-made barrier currently encloses a 200 square kilometer area of the delta. It is supposed to protect the river's inhabitants against the large predators. The occupants of this part of the delta are the Hambushuku, an ethnic group from southern Angola, most of them escaping the devastation of civil wars.
We don't think about the danger involved. We have to come to work. Besides, we never see the crocodiles. If I see one getting close, I throw my sickle at him.
Continue making noise to scare them off.
Pythons remain the most feared of animals. They slip through the tall grasses and sometimes catch them unaware as they pick the lily pads used as a vegetable, or as they search for honey in the bog's beehives. Initially, delta dwellers traveled aboard papyrus rafts. They subsequently switched to pirogues called makoro, carved from tall African trees such as the kiat, the marula, and the Kigelia africana, commonly called sausage tree. Nowadays, the vast majority of pirogues are built using man-made fiberglass to prevent deforestation. The delta inhabitants are nomadic people. They build and tear down their housing according to flooding conditions. The long canes are used to erect a protective barrier essential for the prevention of unpleasant encounters.
Terribly bumpy today, jumping around.
The Okavango River's basin is an extremely fragile ecosystem. Over 400 different species, critically dependent of one another, coexist. An environmental program aimed at raising young crocodiles in a farm setting has been running for 2 years. 100 or so are released annually into the waters.
Adam, it's fine. Who's yummy? We got him.
If you can just
Yep.
grab the tape.
You can actually hear the other crocs calling, responding to his calls. Right here, right here, right here, right here. There's a big one. Let's finish this one and then we'll see if we can get him afterwards. So what we basically do over here with the crocodiles is we have an identification system using the scoots. So those scoots translate to these numbers as you see them here. This left row of scoots is this row here, and from these single scoots down is these here. As long as a crocodile grows, those scoots will remain cut. So if we capture this croc again in 10 or 15 years, we can count the scoots that are missing, go back to our code over here, find its ID number, go back to the data book, and then see what the measurements were and compare them to the new measurements. R6.
The collection and the scales tissue analysis serve two distinct purposes: monitor the species' health and assess the pollution level of the river.
From here we can just release. Okay, the tape's off. Okay, Balto's all yours. Away. Dick, that Adam's laughing at this big joke. Did you guys start to turn good? Yeah, it's far there. Okay, it's gone down. What we need to do is catch those other guys who are making so much noise, because they
Let's put this gear away.
will be very interesting. Push it up, Adam. Okay, Bolter.
Yep.
Okay, wait. Okay. Grab those jaws. Wait. I got the jaws. Hold it, base it down. Got it. All right. Got those jaws, eh? Let's untangle this guy. Okay, hold on. Oh, recapture. This is really exciting news in the world of science. What's happened here is we've caught this croc before, so it has its own identification number already. So every measurement we take here will be new, and we'll take it back to the database and see how this croc has moved and or changed condition or body length. So we're going to redo all of those measurements now just to see what the situation is. This is a farmed animal, bro. This is one of the crocodiles that we would have released. We would have released last year. We released 88 animals as part of the farm release program from Okavango. It's moved a long way down. So this is going to be great data, not just for our research, but for the farm release program, which is something that we're focusing heavily on. So excited about this. Hold it. Tape is off. Croc is back in the Okavango again for the second time.
Another job well done.
So, well, a little bit of proof that the farm system is working, because that croc has survived over a year now on its own, feeding in the wild. So, a little bit of evidence that the farm system is actually working. Well done. Well done, Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That animal is from the farm, eh?
Is it?
Yeah, from Shikawe.
Yo!
From Samachima. Keep the latte machan. Oh, wow.
To gain a better understanding of certain phenomenon affecting the river, Vince pays a visit to Lloyd Wilmot and his assistant, Kanunga. Lloyd was born here. His ability to communicate with the various ethnic groups makes him one of the most valuable experts.
People are most fearful of hippopotamuses because they attack the canoes of those using the river. We sometimes also fear the crocodiles because they catch people on the pirogues and they attack the flocks. People cannot abandon the river. All life streams from it. The river feeds us, and we make use of its water. Without it, we die in the desert. The river is life.
The water quality remains pure. The vegetation acts as a huge filter. However, the use of various pesticides and fertilizers all along the river is beginning to produce a few negative effects, but not to the extent of what transpired following the notorious hunts that took place between the 50s and the 80s.
During that particular time, there was a a big fuss around hunting, and everybody seemed to be involved with hunting. What was the big deal around hunting those days?
Hunting was almost like a way of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was a resource to be used,
yeah.
and the government saw no reason not to use
it. Yeah.
So, and there wasn't all this eco-awareness that we have today, and this anti-hunting lobby that we have today.
Of course.
And we had to pay taxes on every croc shot.
Yeah.
And it generated employment, it generated some revenue for the government.
Yeah.
And it extended right through until we got independence.
Of course.
And then subsequent to that, of course, these CITES came about.
Yeah.
Various other conservation laws came into being, and government wanted croc hunting phased out in favour of crocodile farming.
Yes.
But we found it would be more lucrative to go into photographic safaris, because we had the boats, we had the camps, we had
all
the drivers, the
equipment,
trained crew.
the knowledge of the area.
We had knowledge of the area.
Of course,
It was much better suited to that. And who wants to go farming after being a hunter?
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Lloyd has become somewhat of a legend. He is renowned for successfully traversing the river and its delta in its entirety aboard a pirogue. Each one of his stories is as incredible as the next. Like the one about bathing with his 5-year-old daughter surrounded by lions and elephants.
This is the main thing. Animals, like lions, read body language. If you show no fear, they can't quite figure you out. And just like your farmer, you get to know your animals, you get to know their behavioral patterns, you get familiar with them. And if you're familiar with the animals, you don't fear them. We just got to know how to, be near them, how to work around them, how to walk around them, how they would react if we do this, how they would react if we do that. And we became like another animal in the park.
At the core of the basin, the elephants maintain a vital role within the river's waters. They carry and disperse seeds that randomly sprout over hundreds of kilometers, promoting floral diversity. There are close to 160,000 elephants within Botswana. They are excellent swimmers and are able to easily cross the fords. For the last 25 years, a man has been living amongst 3 of them. Douglas Groove left behind the western United States zoos to dedicate his time to his lifelong passion, elephants in Botswana. This is one of the few places in the world where he can live freely in the wild surrounded by these pachyderms. Douglas has witnessed the growth of Jacob the male and the females, Thembi and Morula.
These 3 elephants can probably best be described as my family. We met when they were very small little guys. They'd been orphaned from a culling operation, 2 of the 3 from Kruger National Park and the other one from KwaZulu-Natal. And it's been over 2 decades now that we've been together, almost every day, not quite. There have been a few times that I've had to take care of human business, but yeah, mostly every day since then. So they're like my family, like my children.
Douglas and his wife Sandy run a foundation called Living with Elephants, which welcomes schools, tourists, and even heads of state.
Jabu, steady, steady. Whoops, there they go. Okay. Now we think that they play a very important role in terms of being educational ambassadors. People, of course, through these guys, learn about the important ecological role of the elephant in distributing seeds and recycling nutrients and opening thickets. And that's very important for not only the local community, but for people all around the world to understand. Good boy. Very good. Good. Most of the noises, in fact, they make through exhaling through the trunk, but they can also make noises going the other way by inhaling through the trunk and squeezing the very tip of it together tightly. Sometimes we'll hear a high-pitched noise that they like to make. Jabu, squeak. Very good. Good job, Ulani. Excellent. Beautiful. Oh, good. This would just basically be a very dry and dusty desert if not for the Okavango River. Of course, there are threats facing the river and facing the wildlife, and many of these come from outside the region. Pipelines or dams, any kind of hydroelectric scheme, of course, could be very problematic for the Okavango because the sediments would then tend to build up and we wouldn't get the nutrients down here that we need.
Currently, seriously threatened by poaching and industrial breeding operations, the Okavango and its delta have turned to tourism in a safeguarding attempt. No more than 4,000 foreigners a year are given the authorization to discover this unique region, though at a steep price. This keeps the detrimental mass tourism at bay. For the most skilled riders, horseback remains one of the most adventurous methods and is far better suited to venturing out in a quest for wildlife.
Being on horseback, you become part of nature. You explore the delta more into it, you get more into nature, you become like part of the world. You know, the animal, they see an animal as well. They don't hear any sound like an engine running. You know, I find it very unique because going through the water into places that you can't get through with a jeep. With the horse, you can get everywhere, you know, do a lot of island hopping. So it's quite fascinating being on horseback.
The 60 or so inns that greet the few fortunate tourists are all built on the Okavango shorelines. The vast majority of the tourists are from the United States, England, France, and Germany. They shell out over 1,500 euros to have the privilege of spending a single night in this untamed space. Most of Botswana's youth inhabiting villages beyond the delta's boundaries have never even crossed paths with a lion or an elephant. In order to give them the opportunity to discover the wilderness, some of these lodges organize annual internships. It's an amazing first experience benefiting the most underprivileged.
Why the hippos? Why the fish? Why the crocodile?
Educators Jeff and Lesso explain to the children how after the river leaves Angola, it traverses Namibia, passing by the city of Mohembo, before branching out into hundreds of much smaller channels that supply water to the delta. The Okavango Delta is the second largest in the world after that of the Niger River. The biodiversity is, however, far more opulent here. Jeff and Lesso pass on their scientific and biological knowledge to these young pupils. It's important for these children's future to gain awareness of the river and the delta's resources.
It's the first time that I've seen a hippopotamus.
They always talk to us about the river, but I've never seen it before. All these animals, it is such a cool place. The Okavango is currently threatened by the imminent construction of a dam in Angola and a water pipeline in Namibia. As a result, its flow rate would be considerably decreased, just as the delta's water supply would be. It is more crucial than ever to recognize the vital role the river plays in the preservation of the entire region. Urubamba, the ancestral river of the Incas, rises from within the Peruvian Andes. As the primary origin of the Amazon River, it extends from the Andean pinnacles heading towards the depths of the vast Amazon rainforest. Welling from the glaciers at an altitude of 4,000 meters, this is the birthplace of the world's longest river. It is from the Punas, these upper Peruvian arid plateaus, that the Urubamba's long journey begins, which after becoming the Amazon's 6,800 kilometers below, spills into the Atlantic Ocean. Here, the river flows in all its primeval purity. Its waters, laden with minerals and volcanic gases, have been utilized by mankind from as far back as one can remember, revered for its therapeutic properties. The hot springs, aguas calientes, supply basins where the Quechua Indians of the upper region come to bathe, perpetuating an ancient custom. 8 years ago, this thermal site was revamped thanks to the efforts of a local association committed to its ancestral heritage.
These geothermal springs date back to the Inca period. This was where the Incas bathed to relax, soothe their aches and pains, and rest. We are their heirs, and as such, we maintain this site in order to preserve the purity and natural properties of the waters. We explain their many health benefits to the people.
According to the legend, the Apus, mountain divines, created the Urubamba River to fertilize the Pachamama, the earth goddess. In the language of the ancient Inca Empire, Quechua, it is known as Wilcamayo, the sacred river. Temples and ritual sites erected along its path bear witness to the worship of these healing waters by the Incas, such as Tipon, one of the most significant relics found along the river. Here, irrigation works, terracing, and canals, altogether essential to laboring the land, were closely linked to the worship of the sacred waters. Rafaela Ninku and researchers from the National Archaeological Institute proceeded to carry out excavations within the Urubamba Valley. The teams have recently uncovered one of the most impressive hydraulic structures of the primitive Inca civilization.
It is truly a canal dating back to the Inca period. It is fed by descending water from the mountains. It was built both for agricultural works and ritual ceremonies. Since the beginning of time, water has been an object of reverence. In their days, Inca bestowed their offerings to their huacas, which are the sacred springs always associated with the canals. Incas have built these canals and diverted the rivers. They had such great knowledge of hydraulic engineering. To this day, their work remains unsurpassed, and even we, as researchers, cannot fully grasp the full extent of their expertise. If we could sum up their knowledge of water in a nutshell, it would be their complete mastery of hydraulic resources.
The Urubamba River is the backbone of the 200-kilometer area that shapes the Sacred Valley, the heart of the incredible Inca Empire. Irrigation canals and terracing give evidence of the advanced level of agronomical and technical knowledge achieved by the Incas. This was an agricultural civilization that flourished over 3/4 of South America. What remains today of this worship of the river's water?
We practice this ritual to thank the apis, spirits of the mountains, because they bring us rain in springtime. That's the season during which farmers, who have already sowed their fields, plead for rainwater. We are currently ravaging our rivers by throwing our refuse in them, by throwing away our trash in the rivers.
It's the destruction of man by mankind. We're in the midst of destroying our rivers. Look over there. They're dumping a fully loaded garbage truck. Poor river. We're in the process of killing ourselves.
The contamination source originates upstream of the Urubamba. Located at an altitude of 3,400 meters at the apex of the valley is the city of Cuzco. Protected by the walls of the great Saskatchewan fortress, the city looms over the sacred valley. Cuzco, the ancient capital of the Inca Empire and the cradle of civilization, where temples and palaces once overflowed with silver and gold, have since been pillaged by the Spanish conquistadors. Over the ruins of Inca temples, the Spanish have built churches. These Incan foundations have stood the test of time. Designed to withstand forces such as earthquakes, they remain intact, long after the Spanish structures built on top of them have collapsed. Such an event has led to the discovery of the Temple of the Sun's walls, which emerged from the rubble of the St. Dominic Church following the 1953 earthquake. Today, these walls, built without any mortar or cement by Inca architects, are the last remaining traces of the vanished empire. Mass tourism has since transformed the peaceful Andean village into a metropolis of 500,000 inhabitants. Pollution and urban strain increase steadily. Yet, this tourist-laden city is devoid of a water treatment plant. Wastewater and sewage from the modern city spill directly into the river. It is a threat to the ecological balance of the valley and to the purity of the water, so vital to agriculture. Pisac, the ancient city on the river's shoreline at the Sacred Valley's doorway, remains today the region's agricultural loft. At the communal market, an abundance of grains and legumes are bartered. Peasants, heirs to the Inca agricultural tradition, harvest close to 100 varieties of corn and more than 200 different varieties of potatoes, the renowned papas. The seeds, preciously preserved today, represent the unique and unparalleled heritage of Incan agriculture. It is on the Urubamba shores that today's Quechuas sow the nourishing earth.
We use our cattle to work the land. We sow corn, wheat, green peas, and beans. For that purpose, we use rainwater, but mostly river water. Like our ancestors, we are peasants and always have been.
Currently, there's less and less water. In the past, the river's water level used to be much higher.
At one time, water could immerse this entire area. Not anymore. It is currently receding all over the region, and I hope it won't disappear altogether. Without water, it would be the end of our world. Water is a raw material. Without it, there would be no harvests, nothing. There would be no life, of course.
On the other side of the valley, peasants are making plans. In order to deal with the lack of water, they have started their own project. For the last 4 years, through the support of an international NGO, engineer Carlos Acosta, alongside peasants from the surrounding Upper Valleys villages, have operated large work sites aimed at gathering fresh water.
Three communities come from the lower part of the valley. The rest live right here at the top. 6 communities gather up there around Corococa Lake to carry out the work.
At 4,000 meters, Coricocha Lake is an essential part of Urubamba Valley's hydraulic system. In the 80s, at the peak of the increase in population pressure, Cuzco authorities decided to impound the lake's waters. The result? In less than 4 years, a complete failure of the resources required to sustain agriculture occurred. In response to the peasants' uprising, authorities swiftly stopped all pumping operations. However, the damage was done. It would have taken a century for Coricocha Lake to regain its water level. In order to deal with the water shortage, farmers from the valley communities rallied. Means of replenishing the lake needed to be found. Without any financial support from the state, Quechuas, guided by engineer Acosta, have begun carrying out a series of extensive collective work.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué tal? Santa Cruz.
Here you can see the Corococa Lake. It's fed by the canal, and with the help of 300 peasants, we are digging and cleaning. The canal is 2.5 kilometers long and features both concrete and earth sections. From January to April, during rain season, this canal fills up and can hold up to 2 million cubic meters of water. With this in mind, if it rains tomorrow or the day after, all that water will gather in this lake. It's an essential resource, as the infiltration of water within this volcanic area allows the lake to feed countless other sources of water from which over 20 peasant communities benefit.
Con sin número de manantiales o llamados fuentes de agua a 20 y tantas comunidades campesinas.
Thanks to the lake, we can carry out, without any chemicals, clean and natural agriculture. The carrots, lettuce, and beans are watered with this clean, non-contaminated water. That's the reason why we come and carry out this labor 3 or 4 times a year.
Entonces no hay contaminación, entonces para eso estamos en mantenimiento. Cada año hacemos por lo menos 3 o 4 veces.
Remember, this is where there used to be 2 massive boulders, which we had to break, so we need to increase the width of the canal to allow the water to flow. That's good, like that. Here's a Dutchman. Hello!
I'm French.
French, you say? It's great you're coming to help us out. Are you engaged to a peasant woman?
No, I'm just here to help out a little.
Are you an anthropologist?
No.
Sociologist? Journalist?
No, I'm just a tourist.
He'll open a canal all on his own. We'll have even more water.
Already in 2003, there were 2 communities working together. In 2004 and 2005, it was 3 communities. And in 2008, it's a success. Since every year there's less and less water. The only solution is impounding the rainwater in order to fill the lake. So there's always a need for more and more people to maintain the canal. Here comes the water. The flow is good.
Como se puede apreciar, buena cantidad de agua.
On the way down the valley, on one of Urubamba's shores, the river reveals an additional benefit. Saltwater springs surge from volcanic wells, the Coripuyos. Canals leading towards terrace basins, the impounded water slowly evaporates under the heat of the sun. The salt is immediately collected following ancient practices.
It's a saltern that always yields salt. It's the source of water in itself that produces this salt. That's why the Incas called it white gold.
Por eso pues los incas decían, esto es oro blanco.
Incas used to work here, just like this. Then the Incas died. They passed on their knowledge to their children, and our parents passed it on to us, and we continue to perpetuate this legacy.
It's very hard, but changing the bags is what's most exhausting, because we have to carry them all the way back to the warehouse.
Rain season is near. We must hurry, as each year the open skies water carries the salt back towards the Urubamba's current. On the river's edge, Ollantaytambo, the fortified city, guarded the north entry to the sacred valley. In front of these fortifications, Manco Inca, one of the last Inca chiefs, had ferociously battled against Pizarro's conquistadors. Today, the city and its inhabitants remain under the influence of the Inca legacy. The city remains one of the most traditional examples of the Quechua's way of life. Beyond Ollantaytambo, the Urubamba River leaves the sacred valley. Nowadays, one can follow the course of the river, which gathers speed, spawning into torrents and rapids, strictly by rail. Secretly hidden by the mountains, invisible from the valley, Machu Picchu, the only remaining Inca citadel. Virtually inaccessible, Machu Picchu was spared from the Spanish invasion. It remained untouched by colonization. Once the Spanish domination was asserted, the city was gradually abandoned and slowly relinquished to the jungle. Over 4 centuries, the citadel is forgotten, a lost city amongst the mountains. In 1901, thanks to the plans of the Vaqueros, the Tomb Raiders, American archaeologist Hiram Bingham rediscovers the site. Today, with over 500,000 visitors a year, Machu Picchu stands as the most important landmark in South America. It has become the valley's economic breeding ground. This has been at the risk of contributing further to the Upper Peruvian region's ecological degradation. At the foot of Machu Picchu, the Urubamba undergoes changes. Within a few kilometers, it rushes through a 5,000-meter drop. The river then seeps into the depths of the tropical forest. The majestic Urubamba River is at the threshold of the Amazon. The Ivochote Harbor is the southern doorway to the Peruvian Amazon. Beyond it, no more roads, no more trails. The river is the sole pathway through the Amazon. Only the pangueros, aboard 17-foot-long pirogues, are fit to negotiate Urubamba's many dangers. 6,000 kilometers of waterways, an incredible distance that extends as far as Brazil towards the mouth of the Amazon River. Urbano and Julio have been boat drivers for over 20 years. The pirogue they operate connects Ivochote to all established communities alongside the Urubamba's final 500-kilometer stretch.
We carry merchants, passengers. The river is our sole means of transportation. Yes, the only. We serve as plane, train, and car. We also act as grocer and service station. In fact, we bring the city to the people. The river isn't like a road. It constantly changes. Today, we'll travel this way, and tomorrow, we may use the other side. It moves as if it's alive. It cannot be restrained.
Navigating this section of the river is particularly treacherous. The Ponqueros' angst increases as they approach the final hurdles prior to reaching the extensive Amazonian plain. The Pongo de Maninique Rapids are particularly dreaded. As a former trading junction between Inca and Amazonian cultures and a natural border separating Upper from Lower Urubamba, the narrows of Pongo de Maninique remain sacred to the river dwellers.
I always bring a small beer, and when I pour it I say, "Little Pongo, I beg you to let me through." We bring her something to quench her thirst. It's an offering. Sometimes I bring a little champagne. Then we can go through.
The pirogue now enters Machiguenga territory. The lives of Indian communities are strongly tied to the river. Santiago, a teacher in Timpia, is a regular pirogue user.
To us, the river is a pantry where we can find all varieties of fish. It's also where we, the Machigangas, live. Way back, Machigangas didn't have boats such as these. We used to paddle our way up the entire river to the most remote cities.
Until then, this part of the Amazon was protected territory. The Peruvian Constitution allowed for the integrity of the indigenous lands to be maintained, ensuring the preservation of the region's ecosystem, a delicate balance at risk of profound upheaval. Some of Peru's most significant natural gas fields can be found along the Urubamba. They awaken feelings of greed in one and all. Towards the latter part of the 90s, the government trivialized the Constitution and allowed concessions to occur within indigenous lands. This marked the beginning of Amazonian gas exploration. In 2004, at the heart of the Machiguenga territory, the Plus Petrol conglomerate initiated natural gas extraction in Camisea, at the edge of the Urubamba. The liquid gas, pumped through a 700-kilometer gas pipeline extending to the Pacific, is intended to be used exclusively for exportation and for consumption by the city of Lima, the capital of Peru.
There's no access from here, but behind those trees is where all the gas pipes are. Everything's there.
40 years from now, the gas reserve will be depleted and the company will leave as quickly as it appeared. The incurred environmental changes, however, will be irreversible.
The government is in the process of selling the Amazon. It sells the community's land. It's our only way to live. We are opposed to the sale of the Amazon. This is the reason why we fought with unity. This is where we cut off access to the river in Lower Urubamba. The entire population rebelled in order to send a clear message to the national government.
The company issued compensation in response to the community's anger. It then increased exploitation. The company generates tremendous amounts of pollution, and pipeline bursts lead to liquid gas discharges in the Urubamba. Such contamination endangers both wildlife and vegetation. Fishing, a key economic resource for these communities, is being jeopardized. Residing a few meters above the river within the Chojoriari community, the lives of Casimiro Fuentes' family have been deeply affected by the river's pollution.
The pipeline is located upstream of this river's arm. When it rains and there's lots of water, the river carries debris of all kinds. Some pipe remnants, scrap metal, lots of dirt, and even liquid gas is leaking from the pipeline.
Since 2004, the village's 50 families have suffered damage caused by two distinct pipeline bursts. The most recent incident occurred just 800 meters from the dwellings and contaminated the river and all drinking water supplies. Guillermo Gomez is one of the officers in charge of the community of Chojoriari.
We are extremely worried because the river is what is most important to us. The Urubamba is our only water supply, and we can no longer drink it. The company must take care of the situation. It is vital to us. However, neither the company nor the state cares about us. We are some of the most remote Peruvian communities, and no one listens to us. The president will never set foot here. We are too far away. We don't matter to them.
The Urubamba River travels through the confines of Peru and Bolivia, a region featuring a rich biodiversity. About 30 other indigenous communities, whose existence is greatly contingent on the river, must cope with issues similar to the ones the Chojoriari peasants are faced with. Following a 10-hour journey by pirogue beneath the forest's canopy, the Machiguenga villages fade away in the background. The Urubamba enters Inez territory. About 50 years ago, these nomads originally from the Amazon had established themselves on the lower Urubamba shorelines. As one of the last remaining river communities, Miaria is actively involved in the fight for indigenous rights and is one of the most organized in this effort. Gerardo Ponciano is the elected village chief. Confronted with ecological threats afflicting traditional crop growing and fishing, his community has developed new resources. The village women have come together to create a delicate craft. They design and produce cloth featuring intricate designs inspired by the Urubamba, the forests, and various Ines cultural traditions. They sell their creations far beyond their own village's precinct.
This design represents insects, the small spiders from the river. In summer, they walk like this, all together. It symbolizes community life and teamwork. I have something else here. It's for children. These are butterfly wings. They represent the flight of the butterflies. It's a small design with spread out wings like this.
In the new school located in the heart of the village, students learn 2 languages, Yin and Spanish. Formal education is one way to teach the children about their own cultural heritage, and also to prepare them for the turmoil that awaits them.
Uno, dos, y tres. La familia. La familia. El papá. La mamá. El hermano chico. Y el bebé.
Despite the peaceful facade, an uprising is brewing. Gerardo Ponciano, together with other Miaria delegates, are on their way to an assembly in Sensa. In a historical first, the lower Urubamba's indigenous communities stand united, holding council in this neighboring village. The aim is to stage the next step in this collective fight for the river, their vital resource.
We've always been warriors, expert navigators, and merchants. We are currently facing new obstacles, the eddy threatening to sink our pirogues and endangering our way of life. We are well aware of our united strength, of our power to defend our rights, and of our ability to take control of our future and our progress.
Today, they appear fairly optimistic. Their last meeting was a total success.
This is where we completely obstructed the river. None of Plus Petrol's vessels or private boats could get through. We all stood up demanding to be heard by both the company and the state. It took 10 days for the company to finally concede and agree to negotiate with us.
The population stays alert. The river traffic is closely monitored, especially since 2 other larger-scale projects are currently underway. Now is the time to consider our future.
The companies will eventually disappear, but we live here. What will we have left? We want the opportunity to run a sustainable growth project. They will all leave, and we will have to carry our own development while utilizing our local resources. It's not all about us. Our children are the ones we primarily care about. What will their future hold in 20 to 40 years? We're acting now to grant them something tangible, to give them better living conditions and the prospect for growth and progress.
que ellos progresen, desarrollen, que tengan buenas condiciones de vida.
The battle they wage is essentially that of David against Goliath, indigenous communities against multinationals. What is at stake is the river. It is as much a nourishing river as it is a cultural heritage that not only bears the vestiges of long-lost civilizations, but also provides the remaining Indian communities with an opportunity to perpetuate their ancient traditions. This is a true heritage in need of safeguarding. This is the river that links all of Sahel's people to one another, the Niger. Stretching over 4,200 kilometers, it extends from Guinea to Nigeria as it traverses Western Africa in its entirety. Here in Mali is where its course runs the longest. It is a nourishing artery to a country devoid of seashores. It is from the Niger River that fishermen who belong to an ethnic group called the Bozo draw more than a means to live. To them, it is the domain belonging to the Queen of the Waters and the river's magical spirits, of whose secrets they are the sole keepers. The Bozo are one of many ethnic groups populating Mali, all of which bear witness to the history of Western Africa's empires. The Festival on the Niger is an annual event that celebrates this rich history. The celebration takes place in Ségou, Mali's second largest city after Bamako, its capital. This 4-day festival celebrates the river and its beliefs, Malian music and dance, as well as the country's entire cultural diversity. All the following ethnic groups are well represented: Bozo, Dogon, Fulbe, Bambara, Songhai, Tuareg, Mandinka, Senufo, and Soninke. Typically known as Masters of the Water on the river, the Bozo fishermen also hold the Master of Ceremonies title. Young fishermen coming from each of the region's riverbank villages challenge each other during the annual pirogue race. Ibrahima Kontao is in charge of orchestrating the race.
In performing our fishing duties, we fishermen find ourselves scattered around from one season to the next. This race provides an opportunity for all fishermen of the domestic territory, including those fishing abroad, to come together. The man at the head of the pirogue brandishes his staff to cast an evil spell on the other competitor's pirogue, while favoring his own. Altogether, his gestures are an attempt to slow the other pirogues down. This race has been around for a very long time. I couldn't tell you exactly since when, but it goes back to the days the area was colonized.
Sitting on the water, the king of Segu, Damanzon, awaits the queen of the waters, Barafo, the ancestral mother whose progeny are the Bozo people. The traditional Bozo ceremony, featuring the daily lives and mysterious aspect of the fishermen's ethnic group, takes place during the festival. Modibo Dembele is the master of ceremonies.
This festival occurs every year and has been going on for a very long time. In fact, way before my grandparents' days. It's been around for generations. It is an opportunity for us to bestow offerings to our magical spirits with hopes of a good year to come. Barafo, queen of the waters, lives below the water surface. She is half woman and half fish. Although she is a magical spirit, she lives as men do.
Every Monday at daybreak, as the river spirits are barely awakened, an astonishing procession sets ashore at the city. They bring to Segu the weekly earthenware products from Kalabubu village. Located across the river, Kalabubu is widely known as the pottery village. Mostly practical in nature, their pottery is distributed across the country and occasionally exported. 4,000 earthenware pieces are unloaded within a few minutes in an agile and well-rehearsed act. each individual potter will subsequently retrieve their rightful possessions thanks to an inconspicuous mark, often only visible to their keen eye. In order to reach the pottery village during shallow water season, the pirogues must clear a path through the exposed sand ridges. There are close to 150 pottery producers operating in Kalahari. The women of this village, hailed from the blacksmith caste and known as the legendary masters of fire and of the arts and crafts, perpetuate from mother to daughter this ancient tradition that vanishes little by little from the elders' fainting memory. Dean Barafane guides their skillful work.
I was actually born surrounded by pottery, just as my mother was, and even back then, my grandmother worked pottery. So if you're going to ask me to when pottery dates back within this village, I wouldn't know what to say. No man has ever had anything to do with pottery. It's strictly a woman's affair. Today is Tuesday, the day when potters source out clay from the quarry.
Pottery making follows a strict weekly work cycle. On Tuesdays, we collect the clay. On Wednesdays, it is blended with a powder made from crushed old pottery. The resulting mix will better withstand the baking process. On Thursdays and Fridays, we shape our pots. The modeling process is done without a potter's wheel in an amazing display of skillful art.
It is not structured work. Each woman works by herself from home, using her own special technique. The only time they all come together is on firing day. It's on this single occasion that we are all gathered in the same place at the same time.
The clay firing process takes place on Saturdays and Sundays in a specially built grand main fire at the heart of the village. On Mondays, once the cycle is complete again, the potters journey to Segu to sell their handiwork. Bozo people claim there's an entire submerged city on the river's bed, an invisible city guarded by magical spirits as large as the city of Djenné. Eastwards of Segu, surrounded by the Bani, one of the Niger's tributaries, is located Djenné, the mud brick city. In 1988, UNESCO granted World Heritage status to the city of Djenné for its distinctive mud brick architecture. Here you will find neither traditional bricks nor building blocks, but rather strictly mud bricks called banco. The Great Mosque of Djenné is the world's largest banco structure. Regarded as the most significant work in the Sudanese architectural style, it is the symbol of a tolerant Islam within Black Africa, where a strange mix of beliefs and animated rituals still persist. Although merely erected in 1907, the joint damaging effects of the sun and rain call for an annual collective effort by the residents to roughcast the mosque's exterior. The entire community gets involved, and the festivities take place over several days. Living in a city classified as a World Heritage Site that must preserve its authenticity is not always easy, especially when there is a complete lack of modern-day sanitary infrastructure, such as a sewer system. Bakari Coulibaly is responsible for environmental issues within the town hall. His delicate task consists in enforcing the cleanliness of the river and the streets.
I'm going on a neighborhood inspection primarily to monitor wastewater, because it is a major problem within the landmark city of Djenné. Prior to initiating this inspection, I held a local meeting and even made an announcement on Radio de Djamena addressing unsanitary practices in general. As well as specific wastewater issues, I warned everyone that whoever was caught in the act would face charges. Hello, how are you doing?
Health comes first.
That's right. Health comes first. Everything's fine, thank you.
Bakari endeavors to get the names of those who once again have thrown their wastewater onto the street. It's an intricate task in a neighborhood where everyone knows each other and most belong to the same family.
We must realize how difficult things are here. I went on site. I found wastewater, and sure enough, no one's guilty. Everybody blames everyone else. No one dares to point the finger since they're all neighbors. Then there's the issue of endogamous marriages within the city, which adds to my already challenging work. Because when you confront one person, the reality is you're involved with two. You affect everyone.
Tackling environmental concerns in a deprived country is a monumental task. Behavioral changes not only take time, but also require an in-depth understanding of all ethnic groups, their respective traditions, and their beliefs. Actively involved in the Niger River's preservation efforts, UNESCO solicited the help of Issai Dunon, anthropologist at Bamako University, to conduct a study on the relationship that exists between man and the river. He converses with Baba Kontao, who for over 30 years was captain of the basin that allows for the crossing of the Bani, Niger's tributary, 3 kilometers away from Djenné.
In the past, did the elders used to do everything with the pirogues?
Yes, they would attach several pirogues together to allow cars to go across.
Like this?
They would tie 2 or 3 pirogues side by side to fit the car on top. Several of them would then lift the car to mount it onto the pirogues. In those days, cars weren't as large as today's. They were only 2 horsepower.
Back then, did the river used to reach Djenne?
Yes, the river used to nearly reach Djenne.
Up to the city?
In fact, it did at one point reach Djenne itself.
But when did the major scenery change occur? Between 84 and 92?
The landscape really changed during the drought that lasted from 1984 to 1992. This drought caused the river to recede a great deal.
Over 20 years, the Bani has drastically changed in the vicinity of Djenne. The river used to reach the shore right here where we're sitting, but it has since receded by at least a kilometer. Back in the 80s, it would take 2 hours for the few odd cars to get across. All this land we currently see used to be nothing but water. The hydrological landscape has fundamentally been altered. In the past, fishing was the main source of income for the Bozo people, a once thriving economy that has since become secondary to them. All of these people who once earned a living fishing can no longer subsist as fishermen, and as a result they go back to crop growing.
The landscape changes radically further north. We are now in a flooded area called the Inner Niger Delta. This is where we find the masters of the waters, the Bozo fishermen who hold the river's secrets. The Delta's Bozo fishermen adopt a semi-nomadic lifestyle as they move their dwellings according to the seasons and water levels. With the rain season behind them, they yet again settle in their hut along the river's shoreline to carry on fishing for a few months. Hamdi Pagu acts as chief to one of these Bozo camps.
We as Bozo originate from the Queen of the Waters. She's our ancestral mother who lives in the water. Bozo people are the sole keepers of the water's secrets. Transgressing the river's dangers unleashes the fury of the river's spirits, who rise up to the surface in a forewarning to the camp's chief.
Hamdi Pagu's camp is set along Lake Debu's shores in the Inner Niger Delta at the heart of the country. This delta is a true inner sea that forms as the river spills over to create the vast floodplains. It stands as one of the largest flooded areas on the planet, and as such, Mali's main fishing ground.
We're all cousins in this camp. Not only do we have rights, but also responsibilities towards the river. At the start of every fishing season, we sacrifice an animal as an offering to the spirits. This year, we slaughtered a sheep.
The Inner Niger Delta is home to 1 million residents. This floodplain is blessed with a rich ecosystem where fishing yields between 50,000 and 100,000 tons of fish annually. Of the over 140 different species of fish inhabiting these waters, at least 24 are endemic. Bozo people essentially commercialize their catch in the form of smoked fish.
There are rules that cannot be disobeyed. For instance, the containers in which gumbo sauce is prepared cannot be washed in the river.
Fishermen, livestock farmers, and crop growers all operate on a rotational basis in making use of the delta's water and land. Fishermen take over the flooded plains, whereas nomadic cattle raisers run their operations as soon as the water recedes.
When disgruntled, the river spirits can bring about the death of a fisherman as retribution or otherwise trigger fierce storms, capsizing the passenger and merchandise-laden pirogues shuttling between Mopti and Tombouctou.
All of the inner Niger Delta hustle and bustle funnels toward the city of Mopti. Pirogues, people, merchandise, and especially all the fish caught within the delta. The city of Mopti, nicknamed the Malian Venice, is situated where the Niger River converges with its influent, the Bani. It is literally the commercial hub linking both northern and southern Mali and adjacent countries. All Malian ethnic groups have flocked to Mopti, where they live harmoniously throughout this port city in a perpetual bustle of activities. As the Bozo chief of the port of Mopti, Usemani Jenepo personifies a traditional authority figure.
As a Jenepo family, we stand as masters of the waters. No one is allowed to fish in Mopti without our consent. We are the ones given the right to fish. The Jenepos are related to what lives on the water. Ordinary men like you do not know what lies beneath the surface. Only we do, given our close bond with the magical spirits living under the water.
Follow.
At the time, Archanar passed through Mopti. It was a mere fisherman's camp. It has since evolved into a thriving fishing port thanks to the contribution from the Jenepos, the Tapos, and other Bozo families.
Moreover, Mopti is a shipyard on the river where pirogue makers employ several skilled tradesmen. Nails forged by the blacksmiths are used on the spot by pirogue makers.
We are the ones who supply fresh and smoked fish to Western Africa, from Ghana to Nigeria, including Senegal, Burkina, and the Ivory Coast. In this very port, there once was a time where there were rows of semi-trailers as far as the eye could see, filled with fish to be exported. This is where dozens of trucks used to line up. Mopti has already lived through its moment of glory. Today things are much more different.
The amount of fish caught in the delta is nowhere close to what it used to be. As a result, Mopti is experiencing a decline in its activity level. Mopti's assistant mayor, Mumuni Traore, manages environmental issues relating to the river.
The port we're currently in used to have its own fish processing plant. The fish from Mopti was exported to Tunisia and even to France. This plant was forced to shut down. Prior to the onset of the drought in the 70s, this port would receive approximately 150,000 tons of fish annually. Since that drought, we handle from 70 to 80,000, and really as much as 90,000 tons. The drought is to blame for all of this, since the temporary pools remain waterless. These pools are, in reality, suitable breeding grounds for the fish. The small island you can see there did not exist 15 years ago. This river is becoming filled with sand, which hinders navigation, especially of large boats. Today you see, we extract sand from the river's bed. 20 years ago, this type of work would have been inconceivable. It began some 4 or 5 years back.
Sand extraction is a quickly expanding operation all along the Niger River. All this sand is used for building purposes and therefore benefits the country's numerous construction sites. Mali's population explosion is such that the country itself has been a giant worksite for the last 20 years. Due to the lack of fish, an increasing number of fishermen and pirogue operators have had little choice but to take part in this manual labor, which compels them to be immersed in water for hours on end. Several of them dive tirelessly 3 meters deep from morning to night. In some areas, the amount of sand drawn out is quite significant. This is actually beneficial for the river, especially in heavily sanded areas such as Mopti. Elsewhere, however, experts fear these riverbed disturbances may sooner trigger riverbank erosion. Then again, an ecological problem has led to the development of correlating economic activity, a common occurrence everywhere else on the Niger. It is within the confines of the inner Niger Delta region that a familiar, eye-catching, bright orange and blue pinance, the term for large motorized pirogues, can be found. It belongs to the River Doctors, a humanitarian organization established by a husband and wife team of Parisian physicians Hervé and Martin Dary.
The idea of launching this NGO came to us 3 years ago following a 10-year stay in Africa. After having traveled this particular route several times in the past in the company of Molly and friends, we realized the appalling lack of necessities afflicting the nomadic Bozo and Fulbe people. That's when we told ourselves, we'll have to come back here with all the much-needed supplies.
Thanks to its traditional penance, the river doctors reach out to those populations to whom the river provides the one and only access.
She cleans the fish. This is before cleaning, after cleaning. This removes all surface detritus on the fish and sends it to the bottom. How long will they stay here?
Approximately 5 months.
5 months. Okay. Afterwards, they live off the sale of the fish for the rest of the year until the following year.
Does it hurt?
Yes, it hurts.
Turn your head. Do you drink river water?
Yes. Straight from the river?
You don't boil it?
You don't filter it? These are temporary camps. There appears to be no drinking water. Since they don't even have wells in these campsites, they get their water from the river. It's the contamination source for all infections, parasitic and water-transmitted diseases. What really dumbfounded us was the disparity between the beauty of the scenery and the vulnerability and destitution of these people. The river is both a source of life and, as we just saw, of disease.
Mais nous, on a bien vu qu'aussi ce fleuve était source de maladies.
After the rain season, we notice how much higher the river water level is. It reaches up the banco houses. We witness the desolation of it all, as after each season people must rebuild the dwelling they keep losing year after year.
It takes a day for the river doctors traveling by Penance to reach Lake Debo. From Paris prior to its departure, the association has made every effort to announce their visit to the people in as many different ways as possible, including through small local radio stations. The word of mouth will spread far and wide, from pirogue to pirogue and camp to camp. Early morning on the shoreline of Lake Debo in the village of Guidio, the town crier announces the arrival of the doctor's pirogue.
Has the radio announced our visit?
Yes.
Okay, very good. We will work today and tomorrow trying to assess which patients need the most care.
You're welcome. Feel right at home.
In this village of 2,000 inhabitants lacking electrical power, the local health center usually runs without a doctor present. The river doctors use their visit as an opportunity to train staff by ensuring all their consultations are performed with the help of a local nurse. In 2 days' work, the 4 physicians will complete 236 consults.
I will explain to them the 3 food groups and how each one of them must be added to the gruel. Otherwise, the end product has no beneficial value. In order to be effective, all 3 of the food groups have to be eaten together.
Pour qu'il soit efficace. Si c'est séparé, c'est pas efficace.
As a first impression, one would likely assume that these populations are blessed by the river and the resources it can represent. Although it is true that fishermen do fish a lot, the amount they catch still declines steadily. The sand accumulations, as well as the water level fluctuations, endanger these populations for whom the river represents everything.
Over the last 20 years, unrelenting drought periods have caused the river's flow rate to diminish. Mali's most vital resource is endangered. Thus, saving the Niger River is a top priority as much for the country as it is for Western Africa as a whole. This may very well be an onerous undertaking for the world's most destitute region.